Well, the longest season in WNBA history all comes down to what could be the longest WNBA Finals in league history, with a potential of a 7-game series. Welcome to WNBA Hoop Streams, presented by Google, alongside Courtney Cronin. Fresh off the first take desk, by the way. Going back and forth with Stephen A. Smith over the last couple of days. This might be a little more reserved atmosphere here in Studio E. I'm Sam Ravech. Great to have you along with us. Although reserved, I don't know. I mean, we've just seen fireworks over the last from the league. And we will start. I think we got to rewind first before we get into the finals, and we will. We got to rewind back to Tuesday afternoon, where Minnesota Lynx superstar Napheesa Collier lambasted the WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert, and she said a lot of things in her prepared statement, but the most important maybe being that the WNBA has the, quote, worst leadership in the world. And with the collective bargaining agreement, obviously, Courtney, looming in the weeds down, well, less than a month, it seems like the players and the league office are certainly at a crossroads here. But before game one, we had a little bit of a State of the Union, I guess you could say, from Cathy. And here's what she said in response to a question from our very own Lookahead.
There's a lot of inaccuracy out there through social media and all this reporting. And so I think what's most helpful is to focus on, I have been in touch with Napheesa. We've exchanged texts. We're talking next week. So I think, obviously, a lot of reporting, a lot of inaccuracy about what I said or what I didn't say. And I will tell you, I highly respect the players. There's a lot of emotion and passion going on right now because we're in collective bargaining. We're in the WNBA Finals. And so I'll leave it there. I mean, I'm just obviously disheartened. You know, I'm a human too. I have a family. I have 2 kids who are devastated by these comments. And so all I'll say is just, you know, it's obviously been a tough week. And I just think there's a lot of inaccuracy out there.
All right, so obviously there was a lot jam-packed there in that press conference, and there was a lot of great questions that were asked. What were your overall takeaways, Courtney, from it?
This went on 25 minutes when tip-off right now is 28 minutes away. This is the biggest stage of the WNBA season, and you mentioned it at the top, the longest season that we will have ever had in the W, a 7-game series in the finals, yet there was not one singular question posed to the commissioner of the WNBA about this matchup, about these teams. And so, of course, the timing of it, why did it have to be today? Why couldn't she have moved this up to happen on Thursday during media day, when these questions probably wouldn't have hung over this series the way that they're going to? But I've got to give a lot of credit to the journalist on hand. They did not let her off the hook for the comments that we heard from Napheesa Collier multiple times. You heard right there from our own Malika Andrews, Annie Costabile from Front Office Sports, people wanting specifics about that exchange where she reportedly talked about Caitlin Clark and the fact that these players should be thanking her for the media rights deal that she got them. And I think what you have here is a boiling point in the WNBA with the CBA negotiation and what the deadline is right now on October 31st. Do we feel any closer to resolution or potential labor resolution? Absolutely not. And the way that the commissioner handled this, I think she came with prepared answers. I think that she gave the answers that she could at this time, but it doesn't make you feel like she's the right voice here for the league to be able to progress through. And I don't see how you put the toothpaste back in the tube, Sam, after everything that went down this week in what was supposed to be a week that we're celebrating the Mercury and the Aces. And we still are. There's still going to be great basketball to be played tonight, but given what the commissioner had to address and had to talk about, I feel like the ancillary business of the league is overshadowing the WNBA Finals when it shouldn't be.
It's a great point, too. To be frank, that's not the first time that this has kind of happened in the WNBA. This is an incredibly tough job, being a commissioner of a professional sports league. And I thought Cathy did have those prepared answers. To your point, I'm not sure that anything that she said changed anybody's opinion. And nevertheless, we still have a WNBA Finals to be played. But before we do that, let's welcome in ESPN women's basketball reporter Alexa Philippou, who was inside the room with the commissioner. Alexa, on the court there. Alexa, let me ask you this. Based on what Fee said back on Tuesday, and seemingly the resounding praise that she received from her colleagues across the league, was there anything in this address that you think maybe will resonate with the rest of the players in the league?
Well, I really heard Cathy Engelbert said that if the players feel like I have failed them, if the league has failed them, that we have to do better and I have to do better. That, to me, was a sign of accountability. And, of course, that requires next steps. The players are going to want to see, okay, what does that actually look like? There was a question asked in the press conference about repairing that relationship with players, and she mentioned the desire to have more conversations with them. Obviously, especially once that CBA, I'm sure, gets done, there will be even more opportunity for that. She mentioned that she's going to meet with Napheesa Collier next week, and so that would be a step forward to repairing that relationship. Not sure if that'll be in person or virtual or whatnot, but to me, I think there was some indications that maybe there is a sense of like we do need to do better. She talked about that from an officiating standpoint, trying to really take a look at the problems that people have been bringing up throughout this season and even earlier. Again, it's all going to be what does that actually look like moving forward. And I was actually struck by, I'm sure there's a lot of back and forth about, the players are feeling like they aren't respected in a lot of situations. But Cathy Engelbert showed emotion. She talked about this being a really difficult week for her. And of course, she denied or called inaccurate a lot of the statements that she was accused of saying by Napheesa Collier. But you could also see that emotion, and I'm very curious to see down the line whether that resonates with players, that little more human element, that she's not just the commissioner, that she's someone that maybe if they can work together through a conflict like this, that they can come out the other side better, having a little bit more better understanding about where each is coming from.
I do feel, Alexa, like she tried to take some accountability for what had happened this week. There was that human element. She said, this has been a tough week for me, my family, I have children. So obviously, it's the person behind the business person that's at the front of the WNBA right now. But when you talk about the conversation that she's apparently going to have with Napheesa Collier and wanting to repair that relationship with players, from people you've spoken with in the league this week, how does she get there? As Sam and I were talking about, how do you put the toothpaste back in the tube here if you are Cathy Engelbert?
Yeah, I mean, there's, I think, the element of just building back that relationship through seeing someone else. I was with Caitlin Clark yesterday when she was talking about relationships are built through intention and built through really seeking out and putting that effort into really just seeing where the other person's coming from. This is all also happening on the backdrop of CBA negotiations. I don't think we can separate kind of what's happening, what Napheesa was talking about, and what's happening in the negotiation room. And so that's a really delicate balance, too, because at the end of the day, Cathy Engelbert is representing the owners. And the players are really feeling like they're not being heard or respected as they are trying to push for, greater revenue share, a better salary structure. So a lot of this also might come down to how they continue to navigate those negotiations, where they can find that middle ground. But even beyond the CBA talks, it's going to also come from feeling like Cathy Engelbert is putting that effort into seeing them for who they are and not just for players on the court. And I think there's ways that that can continue to build over time. There's a lot of players that are new to the league that might not have had that opportunity yet. Of course, more that have been here throughout her whole tenure. They'll take baby steps, and it'll be interesting to see. This is the first step towards repairing that whole relationship.
Last one for you, Alexa. It's interesting. We were talking about the timing of this whole thing. You're literally standing on the floor, and we got game one of the finals being played in just a matter of a couple of minutes here, and we're talking about the CBA negotiations and media rights deals and player safety, all of which are incredibly important. But, I'll ask you this. Has all of this taken away from the excitement surrounding the finals between the Mercury and the Aces at all?
I would say that it has been distracting in a lot of ways. I mean, I've never seen a press conference filled with so many people, and a lot of people from the league office, from teams, from broadcast partners, obviously reporters, and everyone, even throughout the league. I spoke with people from other teams who weren't necessarily as excited to see how the game went down. They were very interested to see what Cathy Engelbert was going to say. It felt like the real event was happening here at 4 p.m. Pacific when Cathy Engelbert finally addressed the media for the first time. Now, well, we'll have to see. That might be the case for today, but this is a best-of-7 series. We've got some great star power, Asia Wilson, Alyssa Thomas, that are ready to go. Two teams really hungry for a championship, so once things actually come into fruition with getting on the court and maybe things settles, the dust sort of settles with all this off-the-court stuff, then we might be able to get back to talking about the basketball.
Yeah, no question about it, Alexa. And there's two different things going on here at the same time. There's a game being played off the court, and then, of course, there's a game that's going to be played on the court just behind you in a couple of minutes. That's Alexa Philippou. Alexa, thank you so much for joining us and adding some context to this crazy time in the W. Appreciate it.
Of course, anytime.
So, look, again, like, it was great to see Cathy get up there and say everything that she did. I appreciate Alexa's thoughts there. I'm curious to see how the players receive her comments. Like, I think that's going to be the next step going forward to mending some of these relationships.
Some of her biggest spark plugs in the WNBA, the people who have been the most vocal against where CBA negotiations are going, the ones who stood in support of Napheesa Collier, are in those locker rooms right now.
Yeah.
We know what A'ja Wilson said this week. We know what Satou Sabally said right around the time of the trade deadline, which he said, we're not getting anywhere with these negotiations. Frankly, it was a slap in the face, the first deal that was presented to them. I am very curious about how and when they're going to have a chance to digest all of this while going to try and win a championship, Sam. Like, can you imagine just the duality you have to have as a business person, as people who are represented on the WNBA Players Association, while also trying to go out and finish the job in a 7-game series. And this thing could drag out for a while. We know that October 31st, right now it's the 3rd. If this thing goes 7 games, hopefully if it goes 7 games, if the basketball can be as good as it was up until this point, especially the series that the Aces just finished off with the Indiana Fever, we're looking at 2 weeks, maybe, between the end of the season and what's going to happen to the future of the league. There's a lot of time in between now and then that I think important conversations can continue to happen. But they've got a lot of groundwork to make up from the league office in order to mend those relationships, or at least try to get things on the right track before they get back to the negotiating table. Yeah,
and the negotiating table will be a hotly contested debate, I think, over the next couple of weeks and maybe even months as this thing continues to drag along. Although I don't know any single CBA that has gone smoothly. This is usually an acrimonious time for league players.
None of them ever do. But like we were talking when we were preparing for the show today, the NFL CBA in 2020, when they ratified it, they forced it through during COVID. That was about a month and a half removed from the end of the Super Bowl. Like, I don't understand why it's structured the way that it is, where they barely have any room to do any sort of debate or real work at the negotiating table. They've had months. They had the meetings dating back to the WNBA All-Star break. So we'll see what happens here. I'm really curious when Adam Silver's name was brought up here and the NBA involvement and what he's going to be doing with the CBA negotiations. That's the one that Cathy tried to skirt a little bit. Very curious to see how that is perceived and what potentially the next steps are there.
No question about it. So we heard from Malika Andrews asking questions. We just heard from Alexa Philippou. We got a lot of great ESPNers on the ground there in Las Vegas. So too is Ari Chambers, and she was able to catch up with quite a few of the players during shoot-around earlier in the weekend. She gave us a unique perspective.
Fam, I miss y'all so much in studio, but I had to get boots on the ground because it's WNBA Finals time, so let's see it through my eyes.
Oh, welcome to Vegas. Welcome to the finals.
Welcome to the finals, that's all. Y'all have been riding on this. Nobody wanted to see us in this position. Do you really feel like people were sleeping on y'all like that?
Yes, it's everywhere. Predictions, everybody else is going to win except us.
Hello.
Thank you.
Yes. What's up? I didn't see a mom. That's crazy. All right, yeah. Appreciate it.
When we come in, we get our jokes out, we get our laughing out, but we know when it's time to lock in. But I mean, I've been in this position, so I kind of like just lead off of, Chelsea, Jackie, A'ja, even Jewel. Like Jewel's won championships, Megan's won championships, Kia's won championships. So everybody has been in this position, so we know when to, stop laughing and joking and when to be serious.
Look, I'm gonna keep these laughs. These are like, this is the cheat code. These are literally, they're so the cheat code.
All these is recording me? Oh.
That's what I told you. I literally said the glasses are on. Yeah, I would have told you if you said something crazy. I ain't lie. When you got baddie friends, like it just hit a little different.
Through the eyes of Ari Chambers, and now she joins us from the floor there in Michelob Ultra Arena. Ari, Really appreciate you joining us, and really appreciate that behind-the-scenes look. That was pretty cool. I'm wondering what would happen if you wore those glasses like all day long. That would be really an interesting thing.
Of course I did, Sam. You know I'm going to start wearing them in Bristol just to, capture you at your most unexpected times.
Ari, look, we're going to get to the game, that's going to be tipping off and momentarily behind you, but we did just hear from the WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert. I know you were in the room. Just what were your biggest takeaways from some of the things that she said?
Look, my takeaways from everything that's happened this week is just everybody wants a better product for the league, and what that looks like is very different between both parties. They have to come together. It's a negotiation, so it's going to take a while. Obviously, there are more eyes on the league this time. The trajectory is going up and up and up. 4 years ago, they still had a delayed, consensus, so I anticipate a slight delay. But as far as the leadership goes, there needs to be a reconciliation with trust, and that's what Napheesa was saying. It's a communication error within leadership and the players right now, and that should be their priority.
Ari, the players that are currently behind you on the floor, I'm going to take a wild guess that they were not paying attention to the commissioner's press conference because they're trying to get ready for the game.
I didn't realize that Phoenix had run out, Courtney.
But you've been there. You are boots on the ground for us. What has been the reaction from the players who are trying to get ready to go win a championship over all of the events that have unfolded this week?
Listen, both sides have something to prove. You have the Aces, and Malika Andrews said this, dynastic, right? They are trying to cement themselves as a dynasty program. And then on the other side, you have Phoenix Mercury, who all of their lives, especially their rock, Alyssa Thomas, has been the bridesmaid. They want to finally be the bride. They want to finally get the ring. There's so much to play for. This is a team full of players who know what they want to do. And I love being here, y'all. There's so much energy in this arena. And that's why I say, when you have this talk about CBA, and you have a talk about just the different of opinions of where the league should be, the common goal is like, hey, we want to grow the game. We want to make this product the best quality product we can. And that should be the end of the story.
No question about it. Last one for you, Ari, before we get you out of here and you can go enjoy game one. What is one thing you are looking...
Y'all can hang out with us.
I know. Maybe we'll get you. We're going to try to get you post game. But what's one thing that you are looking forward to most between these two teams on the floor?
Yeah. Who's going to be able to hoist the physicality and harness it in a disciplined way so that the fouls aren't coming in close, and then the offensive rebounding? Whoever's crushing the glass is going to be the victor in this.
Okay, so I do have one more question.
Okay.
I'm going to take you at your word
ahead,
here,
Courtney.
Ari, that you don't mind us getting you almost knocked over on the floor. Nalissa Smith.
Courtney, I think I lost you. You got to shout to me, babes. It's so loud in here.
Nalissa Smith, I know that you've had a chance to catch up with the teammates of one of the newest Aces players.
If you're asking me a question, Courtney, I cannot hear you, but because Nuck If You Buck is playing so loud here.
Hey,
there is
that's
a
my
halftime
song,
performance
Ari.
with Juvenile, so the energy is present. So if y'all can't hear me, I don't know what to tell you, but we're bringing it here.
All right, we got you. We'll let you go enjoy the game. We really appreciate you taking the time and always really appreciate your unique perspective as well. Thumbs up. There we go.
Thumbs up if you got us, Ari.
Yeah, no, it was...
But you could hear it. I mean, you could feel the intensity when the Aces players were running out there right behind her. I love that we've been able to shift gears here a little bit because it was intense there for the 25 minutes of Cathy Engelbert's press conference where it was all business. I'm ready for the basketball. I'm ready to see, can the Aces pick back up where they left off 2 days ago with an overtime game against a team that was completely depleted at that point in Indiana, yet still put them to the test. And then to see what the Mercury did. I mean, what Ari was talking with some of those players, just about like, what Natasha Mack said. Nobody thought we should be here. We were 27 and 17 this year. Like, we shouldn't have been here. And yet here they are, a team that is surging at the right time. And I'm just glad that we get to turn our attention to the stories that are on the court and the physicality that we know we're going to see. I just hope that there's the officiating part, kind of bringing it back into what Cathy Engelbert was saying when Holly Rowe asked her about those conversations that she's had with the head of officials to make sure that these games are called in a way where we don't have another ancillary storyline overshadowing any of the games this finals.
No doubt. And I do think the one thing that Ari said that I think we all agree with is that we are all kind of coming at this with the same goal, which is to grow the game of women's basketball and grow the game of the WNBA. And obviously the attendance at an all-time high, but also just the overall interest in the game of women's basketball is at an all-time high, which brings us to our next segment, which is Fan Searches, brought to you by Google. WNBA teams with the most championships is a breakout search in the U.S. over the past week. And although the Aces don't have the most championships, they have to answer to Minnesota, Houston, and Seattle to get to 4. But they do have a chance to win 3 in the span of 4 seasons, which in and of itself is an incredible feat. But their unprecedented run to the finals this year has raised questions, I think, and valid ones about a dynasty or how dynastic this team has been over years past. If they go on and win this championship this year, do you think that they are in that dynasty conversation for the best dynasty in the WNBA?
Without question. 3 since 2022, and how often they've been in that conversation, how often they've had the MVP of the league,
Right.
Asia winning it yet again. It almost feels like it's a box that she has to check because she's that good. You have to put them in that mix. And I think what's so cool about this team, and we know what happened, that 53-point loss to the Lynx, like worst loss in franchise history, one of the worst losses that we've seen in the W. To watch them rally from August 2nd to rattle off 16 straight wins, 17 if you include the first one of the postseason, to watch them go from the ninth in the standings to number 2. That's part of the overall story. If they do become this dynasty, winning a championship and getting to start out tonight at home, that's without question one of the coolest things we will have seen in league history, to watch a team and its resilience led by someone who I think this season tested A'ja Wilson's leadership more than any other year. And she has multiple finals MVP teammates on her team with her, but they relied on her. And there was a great story that Michael Vopel of ESPN.com wrote about that text message that she sent to her teammates. Calculated, very thoughtful, put a lot of work into making sure that the message was not just received, it was acted on right away. And I think what Jewel Lloyd said, it's like when your parents are disappointed in you, like that's how they view her. So for her to get her team to this point where they turned around a 500 season, a season that felt like it could have gone any which direction at the break.
For all intents and purposes, right?
To the 2 seed?
Yeah.
To finish off August effectively undefeated, and then going into the month of September, going into the playoffs, how good they have been playing. This is stuff that like legends are made of, Sam.
No question about it. And that text message that you referenced, this is what it said. And I'm quoting here. A'ja sent this to her teammates after that loss on August 2nd. If you weren't embarrassed from yesterday, then don't come into this gym. You're not needed or wanted here. We need the mindset to shift. That was embarrassing.
Yeah.
That's what a leader does, though, right? I mean, you're not looking for a friend. You're not looking for somebody to, it wasn't a subtle text message. It was like, hey, we need to wake up here and we need to get this thing going in the right direction, because we don't, then we start to lose this momentum, and there's already the narrative after how last season ended that, maybe this whole thing was, done in Las Vegas, and maybe they weren't cut out for it to continue on this road that they were on. But no, that was a leader doing what a leader does. And sometimes it's not always what you want to hear, it's what you need to hear.
And I'll correct myself. It was Chelsea Gray who had the great follow-up. She said, it's like the feeling when your parents are really disappointed in you, you're just ashamed. Can you imagine? Right. A'ja is incredible in her own right, and her teammates know. You saw the video when Cathy Engelbert brought in the MVP trophy a couple weeks ago, and what the reaction was from her teammates. If my teammates on a path of greatness and our team as a whole is on a path of greatness, I don't want to let anybody down in that process. And for a long time this season, it felt like, honestly, a two-person team. It was Jackie Young, it was A'ja Wilson, and they couldn't figure out, outside of those two, how did they dig themselves out of that hole. What I was trying to ask Ari about was the addition that they made at the trade deadline, which might have been one of the bigger moves that paid off during the season in the W, which was bringing in NaLyssa Smith in the third chance that she's had to revitalize her career. Drafted by the Fever, didn't work out there. Goes to the Wings, not there for very long. But to get her to this point and the role that she's contributed to of that front court being as good as they are, like it's a masterclass in roster building, but it's also a masterclass in the leadership of one player getting everybody else on board and getting them to this point.
No question about it. And I think everyone that's watching, we got 6 minutes left in this show. Maybe we got some Mercury fans in there. They're like, what about us?
I know. I'm so sorry, guys.
What are we doing here? We're playing in the finals here. Look, rebuilds usually take years to come to fruition, right? And this was the first year that the Mercury were without DT. They were without, obviously, Brittany Griner. And yet here they are for the first time since 2021 back in the finals. They have embraced that underdog mentality throughout the entire season, Courtney, and I think they're going to continue to embrace it, obviously, here in this finals. But what are some of the must-dos, do you think, for Phoenix if they want to win their first title since 2014?
I mean, you think about what this team didn't have going into the season. 70% of their scoring from a year ago.
That's a lot.
It's gone. Yeah. And you brought back Kalia Copper and Natasha Mack. The fact that those two and the trades that they made, bringing in Alyssa Thomas, obviously DeWanna Bonner's there as well, making this core as good as it is. You've got to win the battle in the front court, because we saw in that series last week with the Aces, they were getting all their shots from like two players up for the first 5-6 minutes of games 1, 2, and 3 against the Lynx. Like, I am so impressed with how good they are playing. You need to defend that. You've got to win the battle on the boards right away if you are the Phoenix Mercury. And I think the physicality will find its way to be shown on the boards very early on and just kind of give you a tone setter for what the series could eventually be.
Injuries and player safety has been a big part. We were just talking about it, and Cathy referenced it in her press conference. The Mercury were one of those teams that were just ravaged by injuries throughout the entire season this year. I think they only played 10 of the 44 games with their big three this season. And that's not even to mention that they finished the season on a 3-game losing streak to teams that didn't even make it to the playoffs this year. What does that say? We talk about the resilience and the leadership on the Aces side, but what does that say about the leadership and resilience for the Mercury?
You know, that's why I picked them against the Lynx, because when we talk about the regular season and what happened between Minnesota and Phoenix, like there was no Kalia Copper, there was no Alyssa Thomas, there was no Satu Sabli in 3 of those 4 regular season games. That's a very talented roster that never got a chance to peak at the right time. So the fact that you get these players here, everyone is healthy at the right time, I think you see a different. The reason they're 27-17 and what that record reflects are the games that their stars weren't playing. Now everybody is. So I think that you're in a great spot to show that your strength can handle a roster that's more experienced. Like, frankly, that is where the tipping point is here. The Aces have the playoff experience. The Mercury don't. And if you can even it up just by the play of Alyssa Thomas, who you see on the screen right now, that woman could have very well won the MVP, and she knows it.
Yeah.
Asia Wilson knows it just as well too. So I think you have her come out on a tear tonight and set the tone that, yes, we may be underdogs right now, at least in game 1 or in this series overall. Like, I would not be surprised if they end up pulling off the win tonight. They are more rested, and they've got an edge to them.
This is a strength-on-strength matchup, which is one of the reasons why we're so fascinated about this matchup. You got the best team offensive efficiency-wise in the playoffs in the Las Vegas Aces going up against the best defensive efficiency team in the Phoenix Mercury. Obviously, what we have seen from both of these teams throughout the entire season has been resilience. It's been overcoming adversity. But it's been about leadership, it's been about teamwork, it's been about who can kind of muster up the win. It's not always going to be pretty, but who can just get it across the finish line. I think we've seen that from both teams, and it's something that we're going to be watching a lot for over the course of this finals. Let's go ahead and make some predictions here for Game 1, Courtney. Who are you going to take in Game 1? We're not going to predict the entire finals. Again, it could go 7, but let's.
I hope it goes 7.
I do too.
If we can get anything like Game 5 the other night in overtime, I'd be good with that.
That was a good one.
I am taking the Mercury tonight, and kind of like I had just mentioned, they are a little bit more rested. Obviously, adrenaline and all those things come into play here. The Aces just wrapped up their series in an overtime game on Tuesday. But you talked about resilience. When you think about the last series in the 4th quarter and what the Mercury were able to do to overcome the Lynx, winning games by single digits, grinding it out at the very end. I've seen a team that has proof of concept of that. I think that's what happens tonight.
I'm going to go with the Aces. I think they get the job done. Far be it from me to bet against what Becky Hammond has done, and far be it from me to bet against what the MVP has done in Asia and Jackie, who you mentioned, the big two there. The question, I think, for me is going to be, can the Aces kind of involve their bench a little bit more? That's going to be one of the big things we'll be keeping an eye on as this thing goes along. That's going to do it for us. But by the way, you guys who are watching us right now, come back after the game because we are going to be here on the wrap-up to break everything down as well. Maybe try to get a couple player interviews. We'll see if Ari can hear us from the stadium if we get her as well. Thanks so much for watching WNBA Hoop Streams presented by Google. For Courtney Cronin, our entire crew, I am Sam Ravech. We'll see you at postgame and enjoy Game 1 of the WNBA Finals, everyone.